Right. Moving on, we come to the end and our last panel discussion for the day on building a cyber resilience for business continuity. Let's start by introducing our moderator, Mr. Christian Macatulad, for Information Systems Security Leader, Interpol, Mr. Muneeb Imran Shaikh, Data Privacy Manager, Saudi Credit Bureau, SIMAH, Mr. Abdul Rahim Shaikh, CISO, SULFAH, and Mr. Mamdoh Alzhrani, Chief Information Security Officer, Banking Sector, and SIYEB founder. And finally, Mr. Sufiyan M. Bharde, Cybersecurity GRC Lead, Arabian Drilling Company. Over to you, Christian, for to moderate the panel.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thank you, Roger, and good afternoon, everyone. So, the topic for today will be building cyber resiliency for business continuity. I'm Christian Macatulad. I'm working for Interpol Global Complex of Innovation here in Singapore for the Office of Information System Security. And my background is building secure infrastructure. So I'm going to give a chance to each panelist or guest to introduce themselves and give us a brief description of their background. Let's start with Muneeb.
Chris, for having me on this platform. So I have been working in the telecommunication sector, financial sector within Saudi Arabia. I started off my career from Pakistan and largely the telecommunication sector, but also in the financial sector and the government sectors. In the consultancy side for cybersecurity, again, my niche is around the governance aspect. And right now I'm working as a data privacy manager for one of the credit bureaus in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Muneeb. Let's move with Sufiyan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chris, for having us here. Thank you, Bridget. It's a pleasure seeing and meeting you all. I'm a cybersecurity professional with over 7 years of experience doing into the consultancy field for GRC, especially in cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear from Mr. Abdul Rahim Shaikh.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hello.
I think he's facing some problems. Christian, could you please move on to the next panelist while he fixes his problem?
Okay, let's move to Mr. Abdul Rahim.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you, sir.
Okay, fine. I think there was some problem. I'm Abdul Rahim Shaikh here. I'm having a decades of experience in cybersecurity implementations, governance, strategy, and policies. I'm based in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I've been working with fintech company, finance companies, and financial companies. So thank you very much for Trex for hosting me, giving me a chance to speak, and also to Christine. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And finally, let's hear from Mr. Mamdoh Alzhrani.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm happy to join you in today's conference. My name is Mamdoh Alzhrani. I've been in the industry of technology and IT since earlier in my career. I spent now almost 13 years in the financial industry. I started in IT, then I moved to information security, cybersecurity. Now I'm the chief information security officer in one of the banks in Saudi. And recently, in the past year, I have founded with two of my teammates a platform, a web platform that is doing compliance for cybersecurity, and it is called SIYEB platform. Thank you for the invitation, and happy to be with you today, inshallah.
Okay, thank you, sir. So As I've mentioned earlier, our topic for today is building cyber resiliency for business continuity. So actually, we always hear cybersecurity, but we seldom hear about cyber resiliency, or is it part of cybersecurity? Um, by definition, cyber resilience is taking the mitigation of risks from the cyber attackers and looking at it in the perspective of resilience. So it is for the organization to be able to bounce back after or while facing a cyber attack. So my first question, I hope we can get a lot of insights for Muneeb. So why do you think resilience is such an important aspect for business in general? You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So see, businesses exist based on their ability and they grow and thrive based on their ability to create value in the society. And see, businesses have existed even in the times and era when terms like information security and cybersecurity were not coined. So any business that fails to create value in the society, or that fails to innovate or disrupt the value propositions in the society, that essentially withers away from the society's value chain. Therefore, resilience is an integral part of not just the cybersecurity, but it's an integral part of the entire business strategy itself. So that whatever, regardless of how societies move from one era to another, the businesses should continue to remain functional and they should continue to add value to the society. Now, coming to today's point, resilience is a virtue that has to be permeated across all the organizational units in order for business continuity program to be successful. So therefore, resilience is not just something which is important for cybersecurity. Resilience is an aspect, or it's a virtue that's relevant to all to the business at large.
Okay, so so if resilience is such an essential part of of developing or running a business, I want to ask Mr. Sufiyan Bharde. So why particularly cyber resilience must be a strategic focus for business continuity?
Excellent. I was like, Mr. Muneeb has addressed it very well at the initial, how to introduce like what is the critical element of the cyber resilience. Coming back, why it should be taken as a strategic focus, for business continuity. Today's businesses faces greater risk when it comes to the threats. Like more than ever, the threats are evolving, and we are keep on attacking with the numerous aspects from the numerous virtues or numerous standpoints, right? Now that just justifies how essential cyber resilience has become for business continuity among all these threats which are emerging. Now we must ensure that our organization, remain designed for the future. It must be flexible, efficient, and resilient against attack to, preserve business operations. Having been said, the business continuity is, let's say, major driver for the future of business operations. However, many companies still don't know what they should be prioritizing, right? Should they be focusing on preventing cyber attacks or protecting the assets during crisis? We don't know, and the stakes are extremely high. So, when we are talking on strategic focus, let's take this discussion on an approach. How shall we implement it? We should broaden our thinking into thinking for the future and also about thinking into the past, like forward and backward. Uh, during this time of pandemic, for smooth business continuity, many security or technology leaders, they need to take a step back and examine the decisions they have taken during this generally the time during the COVID. Okay, the security, safety, or the response solutions adopted during these times were the temporary fixes, but now they have ended up being the permanent one. This needs to be, re-examined. The attacks through the ransomwares, are escalating, and the business leaders now must take this into the consideration when moving forward. So having been said that, while we are planning, our plan should introduce the attack has already taken place into an organization, and the steps, what needs to be taken into consideration after that. We need to think on that when we are building this. Apart from that, we also need to think the resilience for the unforeseen, events, like what is going to happen in that aspect. So true resilience is how strong your defenses are against the unforeseen threats. The current explosion of the zero-day or evasive malwares, they tells us the story. Now, if you see on the number basis, 74% of the threats or the in the last quarter of 2021 were the zero-day malware. Okay, it's an all-time high, and we are expecting this to be rising in 2022. Therefore, the steps which needs to be taken into consideration is to implement, like to avoid the zero day, is to have the visibility into your network. We need to overcome this, and this we need also to introduce the solution like SASE to complement our business to achieve this resilience element. Lastly, we need to integrate the cyber resilience to the business continuity. I feel resilience, as you stated earlier, resilience is different from the ordinary planning and preparation, because planning for an attack focuses on taking steps to either prevent the attack from happening or stop the attack when it happens. That's not resilience. Resilience focuses on ensuring the business operation do not entirely break, right? The biggest tech giants like are masters of cyber resilience. Like they also face this type of attacks, but they have that ability to continue the business. So from a takeaway going forwards, organization must be ready to leave their siloed type of approaches to cybersecurity, and they need to encompass or bring in a granular approach. The continuity of whole business, after all, rests on the functionality of its part. Now, business and security team leaders must take lead and change in their organization in creating the broader resilience strategy. By they can integrate the risk management business continuity plan for a cohesive approach to mitigating business disruptions.
Thank you, Sufiyan, for that wonderful insight. I want to ask you a follow-up question. With those mitigations and planning that you've mentioned, how do you think companies are able to build a strong cyber security or cyber resilience strategy with the existing tools in the market? Or do we have really, such tools available now for cyber resilience?
Absolutely. Like every organization has these tools in place. Now, let's say for an effective cyber resilience strategy, it relies on several operational activities like business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, incident response plan, some of the cybersecurity operational plan. Now, the goal is to ensure that the organization can resume operation as soon as possible, from the aftermath of the cyber attack. A successful cyber resilient plan, it depends on understanding the interrelationship amongst these parts. Now, when we are talking of this, like using our existing tools, the things which we must take into the consideration, the first is getting the input from the senior leaders or from the management, like how they define the cyber resilience, what it means to them. Once we get that input, we can start identifying the essential operational activities. Like the information which has gathered, we can then perform a business impact analysis to identify the mission critical business processes. We can understand the technologies, the processes, the facility, the resources which are needed to enable those things. The potential impact of a cyber attack which can have on the organization. We can leverage the existing business impact analysis report and use it to determine how a cyber attack may or may not derail the business processes. We can use the business impact analysis research to determine this resilient components. Then we perform a risk analysis. We understand based on the business impact, the most likely internal and external cyber threats to the organization, the ability to conduct the businesses. We can do the threat and vulnerability analysis. We can, for the network perimeter, you can also carry out the penetration test to identify the exploitable vulnerabilities. You can prevent this cyber attack by determining an appropriate strategies based on the, the above activities which have been mentioned. You can minimize the likelihood of the cyber attack occurring. You can introduce or leverage the solution like EDR or endpoint solutions, along with next gen firewalls with the updated technologies. You can have these solutions in place. Then you have to just build a proper and appropriate cyber resilience plan. Structure and cyber resilience strategy to ensure that your critical operational activities can be recovered and returned to the normal operations. Use the plans which you have for cybersecurity, disaster recovery. Try to bring back the mission critical systems to full operation as quickly as possible. When we are talking of cybersecurity, disaster recovery, and incident response plan, we must ensure that our network element can quickly be recovered, and tested for proper operations before we put them back into production. And to ensure that, we need to consider arranging with third parties. If we can use their systems, we can contact manufacturers if we need any special purpose applications or systems. You can maintain a list of applications or solutions which are needed. You can consider cloud technology for backup. We can check with the managed service providers to help us with these kind of a plan. And then with all these things which you are doing, you have to document them and properly check off these availability by carrying out the periodic test and updating this procedure if we see any lack or if we see any gaps in between. So all in all, like achieving a viable cyber resilience strategy, it depends on the smooth collaboration of several preventive or detective and responsive plans and their associated activities. Now, maintenance of up-to-date, documented, and regularly, let's say, the exercises of cyber resilience plan can be achieved using a balanced program of activities. It includes the cybersecurity plan. It can include the business continuity along with disaster recovery plans, incident response plans, periodic business impact analysis or risk analysis, initiatives, communication with senior management, and so on.
Thank you, Mr. Sufiyan. So it really all boils down to the information security program. Yeah. So moving forward, we want to know the main aspects or the components of the cyber resilience framework. Do you have any insights, Abdul, Rahim?
Yeah, thanks, Christine, for your question here. First and foremost, I would like to compliment Mr. Muneeb and Mr. Sufiyan's points. Basically, I'll be the continuation of their journey, what they have spoke so far, right? So it will not be much different, but yes, certainly. The main components basically, like, as we all aware, cyber resilience is not only about plan. Actually, it's about predictive analysis, right? Like in today's situation, business has accepted that the attack is going to happen. It's not like if it is going to happen. Now the question is when is going to happen. So everybody has to, the business has to prepare for the future attacks if it is going to happen. See, in almost on a daily basis, every users, they are facing some issue or the other, maybe in a form of phishing emails or maybe in a form of some spams or something like that. So this is a form of attacks, but those are not very serious in nature. But cyber attacks are something like, basically it's a low probability, high impact events. So the chances of happening is less if you have a good controls, everything is in place. However, if it is happen, then the impact is huge. Now, let's say, for example, in our any industry, but I'm just taking example of my own industry, which is the fintech industry. Like we are totally depend, our business model itself is depend on online, right? So even if it is a minor threat attacks also, if it is happening, our entire business is down and will be out of the business, right? So these are the challenges. Now, at the time of panic, a situation at the time of incident happens, then everybody is, going to a firefighting mode, that what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So I think that is at a very later stage. So in order to have a proper plan or proper proactive plans, I believe like we need to have a proper framework in order to address this type of threats. So to start with, as Sufiyan said, we need to have risk assessment and stuff like that. Yes. So basically, the first and foremost is like we need to identify the critical business processes. Identification of the process is very important because most of the organizations, they lack that. They don't identify all the assets, and as a result, even a laptop sometimes, it acts as a major threat to the organization. Even you spend millions in securing the organization, but if you don't have a complete inventory of assets, then you cannot your exercise is not complete basically. So first and foremost, identify your assets, the business processes, and those business processes depends upon which assets. Conduct a complete thorough risk assessment, right? Second most important thing is basically now there is a lot of dependency on the external vendors. I'm talking about the supply chain now. So we when we are moving towards the cloud, we are depending upon the vendors. So we have to have a very robust risk assessment for the vendors itself, because they are also a part of the supply chain, and most of the attacks could happen from their side. So we have to include the in our assessment plan, the vendor has to be included. This is a very important point. Second thing is that then we need to have a proper protection system in place. Now, when I said protection in place, everybody has got some or the other, but just implementing will not be sufficient. It has to be continuously maybe you need to have a proper KPIs, KRIs, and so on and so forth. So it has to be continuously evaluated, the effectiveness of those protection controls. Then there is a need for the detection controls. Also, implementing the detection control is nice to have, but again, if we have a legacy detection control system, then I think as of today, we are facing a zero-day attacks. Those legacy detective control will not be sufficient. People many businesses, oh, we are protected, we have a next gen firewalls. By implementing a next gen firewalls, you are thinking that you are protected, but actually in fact it's not. Next gen firewall will not do anything because it's a combination of the PPP, process, people, and technology. So all has to be synced together in order to implement, in order to make that control very effective. And then another point which is in this entire framework is basically about response. Now, what happens when actual threat attacks happens in the organization? So at that point in time, you have to have a very robust incident management process in place, and which has been already tested before. So that will become very handy for the team, for the incident management team, to respond quickly. And then there comes the recovery part, because during the incident, the cyber resilience, the beauty of the cyber resilience is basically you need to prepare yourself to withstand that attack and to continue your business operations. So I mean, see, we have faced some issues with Chromes and other Microsoft and stuff like that, but we never face a major downtime. Why? Because those organizations, they have a very robust cyber resilience framework, whereby the operation is not impacted. Even though threats are there, the incidents are happening, but it's not. It's for end user, we never notice that. So then another is recovery. How soon your team is capable of recover from those incidents and bring the system normal back in operation. And the last is the adaptability. Adaptability is somewhere as I said, this program, cyber resilience program, is not just set it and then forget it. No, this program is continuously monitoring it. Continuously, you have to be on top of that one. So that is where the adaptability comes into the picture, which is the last part of this entire framework. So with this one, if we follow this process, then I'm sure, we will be on top of the threats. Definitely, risks cannot be bring down to zero, but yes, we can mitigate it and will ensure that our business is not hampered. Our business is continues. So yeah, so this is a thing from my side. Yeah, Chris.
Thank you for the very interesting framework, Abdul Rahim. Do you want to add to that, Muneeb? Because companies now are investing in their defenses, but when the attack actualizes, then they don't know what to do. Do you want to add something in that framework?
Yeah, basically, see, implementing just the framework will not be suffice. See, this is the starting point, but you have to continuously keep on improving the things. Now, let's say, for example, if we are adopting in a framework, if we are adopting a legacy technology, it's not going to work out. Why? Because now the attacks, the threats are more complex in nature. They are very sophisticated in nature, and the way we after COVID-19, the way we do the business, which is remote business, like the attacks has happening from every point, from every angle, and with digital transformation. Now all the business, they are moving towards online. So basically, the surface area for the attack has increased drastically. So now, in order to defend against those type of attacks, you need to have a very automated tools in order to defend your infrastructure and in order to ensure your business continuity. Next is cyber resilience should be a part of the business strategy. Actually, what happened is cyber security, cyber resilience is never a part of business strategy, but this has to be embedded in the business strategy, and this should come from the top. This is another important parameter. Next is the awareness and the training for the end users. This is another critical point, because whatever you implement it, but if the users come with a normal USB and they use your USB, or they bring BYOD, they bring their own personal devices, then all those technical tools or all those policy and processes will not work out, because the user is not aware, or they just click on the phishing emails on the URL, everything is gone for a toss. So these are the things that these are things which needs to be taken into consideration in order to improve the security posture and cyber resilience. Next is a very every organization says that we are taking the backup. Yes, all organizations, almost all organizations, they are taking the backup. But did they ever check at the time of incident their backups are getting restored? I have seen personally that at the time of incident, their backup is not working itself. They cannot restore. So that means they have to have a continuous process for data backup and recovery, so that at the time of incident, they are 100% sure that they are going to restore in a specific time frame. And then last and not the least is basically disaster recovery as a service. They need to implement some process like this, where in case of a major catastrophe attacks happening at a major site, that at least they are switching over to the DR side, so that their business operations continue. So these are some of the ways that it can be improved. There could be a lot many, but I just highlight what is critical, what I believe to. Yeah.
Yeah, that is very helpful, Abdul Rahim. Thanks a lot for highlighting the ways to improve cyber resilience. But going back to the framework question that I asked you earlier, I want to ask Muneeb to add to that particular framework, or do you have any more aspects to be considered for a cyber resilience framework?
Not much. Actually, you see, I would like to go back and raise the emphasis that look how business continue. You see that the topic is to blend cyber resilience into the business continuity. First of all, we need to understand how business continuity in itself has evolved over past few decades. See, in the past few decades, business continuity was largely driven by the failures of the internal systems, by the attempts to vandalize the infrastructure, by the natural disasters, by the issues in the supply chain and the assembly units. But what has happened in the past few decades is that there has been a massive digital transformation that has taken place across the world. Okay, and with this digital transformation, you have an ever increasing IT infrastructure. And with this IT infrastructure, you have a new threat vector that is emerging in the form of the malware proliferation within your networks, the ransomware attacks, the data exfiltration attempts, the attempts to cause disruption in your services. So that is where the cyber resilience comes in. And so it's not just about having the appropriate controls, as Abdul Rahim mentioned. Yes, these controls are important. It's about how they need to be sequenced and how they need to be blended together in a layered manner where they create an impermeable layer where, so that these layers provide a resilience to your cybersecurity posture, so that your cybersecurity posture is resilient enough to withstand all these cyber attacks. And once your cybersecurity posture is resilient enough, then that is in a position to supplement your business continuity program. So if I have to nail down in 3 to 4 points, I think the first thing first, you need to have the corrective controls. You need to have detective controls in place, which can identify, which can help to early identify any events that can culminate into a cyber attack. The second thing is to have preventive controls, which can immediately take action upon the identified events before they translate into business continuity risks. The third one being the corrective controls, where once the cybersecurity incident has taken place, you should be able to implement those corrective controls and make sure that the business is not really disrupted to a level where the business becomes a casualty in itself. And at the last, you need to have a very solid overarching incident management, detection and response mechanism that has the capability to choreograph all these testing times and helps the organization to bring the organization out of this chaos. And on top of this, you need to make sure that all these controls that you have implemented, they need to be effective as well. I mean, you may, as Abdul Rahim mentioned, if you have some set of controls, but if they are not effective, I mean, they are of no use. So efficacy is one of the aspects that need to be taken care of once you have created a hierarchy or a structure of these controls.
Thank you so much, Muneeb. So yeah, just a few takeaways from this. So we have the information security program, we have the controls, we have business continuity plans, disaster recovery plan. So with all of these mentioned, how can we trust the cyber resilience effectiveness for business continuity? Do you have some insights, Mamdoh? So anyone want to answer the question? Like, you already have everything in place and theoretically you've actually measured the efficacy or the effectiveness of all these. So how do you now trust the controls that you've put in place?
See, organizations usually have their annual business continuity exercises, and they are mandated by the regulatory obligations as well to undertake their business continuity exercise with a certain stress levels. Again, that can be one of the major event that can help you examine the efficacy of your cyber resilience program. But besides that, I mean, there can be intrinsic mechanisms of within cybersecurity unit or division itself, where they can test the efficacy of their controls. on a periodic basis. And again, this can also be verified through the KPIs that might have been set up for each security control, that, okay, why did a particular detective control why was a particular detective control plugged into an entire framework? Is it really serving our needs? These kind of questions can be answered through the KPIs. KPIs is one part of it. However, there's another part, is the testing of those controls that you have plugged in right from day one.
Yeah, or the, you know,
Yeah, I want to add here.
okay.
Yeah. So basically, as Muneeb correctly says, that yes, we need to have an annual testing process, which is very, very important, and where most of the organizations, they lack, like, you know, they lose the focus on that one. In addition to that one, what I believe is, like, you know, we need to have a thorough red teaming exercise as well, which is like, that will really help out, and that has to be done from an external party. So there should not be a conflict of interest. So red teaming exercise is equally very important. In addition to that one, red team exercise, there has to be a continuous assurance services and audit services as well. So with all these things, you are checking the resilience of the controls that has been implemented. See, most of the time, it's not only about the technical controls. There's like, you know, technical control, of course, they play a major role, but it's all about the readiness of the team itself. So because, see, many over a period of time, many people they leave the organization, the process gets changed, the infrastructure gets changed. So these things are keep on changing. In order to mitigate the risk factor over there, the things that are changing, we have to have a proper audit services, assurance services continuously going on, like, you know, on a periodic basis, and as well as the red teaming. I think that will be a best exercise in along with the annual testing for the disaster recovery side or whatever, like, you know. So that will.
Oh, hello, sir. We lost you.
Along with that, I would just like to add one more point, because these two gentlemen have covered it. You know, this exercise thing, so this culture has to be set from the management itself. You know, they need to take these things into consideration and pay far more seriousness into it. That's how it can, you know, keep on exploring or evolving.
Thank you, Sufiyan, for that additional insights. So with all this testing, auditing, and red teaming, do you think cyber resilience should be, you know, mandated or controlled by the government? What do you think is the role of the government in building a robust cyber resilience framework? Anyone can answer the question.
Okay. So I think Muneeb, you was about to speak. Okay,
Yeah, you can finish and then I can jump in on
okay,
this
fine,
one.
fine. Yeah, basically, see, look, this cyber resilience and cyber security has become a very important controls, and cyber threat has become one of the major risks, like, you know. So definitely, government has been taking action on that one. Let's say, for example, like now in Saudi Arabia, like, there are a lot of framework, like, for example, NCA, National Cybersecurity Authority framework, has been drafted in 2017 by the Royal Decree to handle those type of cyber attacks and stuff like that, and the preparedness of the organization. Then there is a SIMAH, which has mandated the banks and the financial institutes and the insurance company to have a very robust cybersecurity framework. And, like, you know, now in recently, they are SADAYA, which is Saudi Data and Artificial Intelligence Authority. They are coming with the data privacy, like, you know, governance system in place, and which is in line with the GDPR. If there is non-compliance to this regulation, then there is a heavy penalty on the organization. So yes, government is taking like, you know, proactive approach in doing whatever they can do, and definitely government plays a very important role in enforcing the privacy of the data, and as well as like, you know, the protection of the data of the citizens. Yeah.
I would like to add over here, Chris. Look, The thing is that the government is essentially responsible for the national security of the state itself. So it has to ensure that different sectors under its umbrella are not adding any risks to the national security. So therefore, they need to make sure that all the organizations that work under different sectors, whether it's under telecom sector, government sector, financial sector, they achieve a certain a certain benchmark around cyber resilience. Because imagine if a bank gets is out of business, think of the consequences that it is going to cause to the national security. Imagine if a big bank is not able to deliver the services, what kind of impact would it have on the financial landscape of the country? So therefore, it's very important to see these things into into a perspective, into the national perspective. So therefore, the government has a responsibility to make sure that all the organizations that are working under the umbrella of different sectors, they adhere to certain standards in the benchmarks. They adhere to certain standards and they achieve a certain benchmark to make sure that their cybersecurity risks do not culminate into the national security risks.
Thank you, Muneeb. Do you want to add something or to answer the questions, Sufiyan?
The gentlemen have answered everything which I was going to say. That's fair enough.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So as for the final part, any key takeaways or final thoughts on, the topic building cyber resiliency before we end the session?
Okay, I'll take this one. See, it's never resilience. When we talk about resilience, it's not about how many security solutions you have. It's not about how much security budget you have. You may have all the budget in the world that you would want, but it's about how you use it and how you have clubbed or structured your security controls and how do you determine the efficacy of those controls. That is what really matters at the end of the day. Because I mean, I've heard quite often people complaining that the budget for the cybersecurity is not enough. Yes, there are organizations that struggle to allocate enough budget for cybersecurity, but I think they have their business compulsions due to which they cannot allocate too much budget for it. However, the real it's also a matter of trust that how much cybersecurity has enabled the business in the previous attempts. So you need to keep these things into consideration as well once you're building your cyber resilience framework.
Thank you so much, Muneeb. And I would have to personally agree with what you said. So I think we can conclude our session. Bridget.
Yes. So thank you. Christian. Thanks, Muneeb. Thanks, Sufiyan. Thanks, Shaikh, Rahim, and Mamdoh for joining us today. And it indeed was an honor to have you all with us and listen to your wonderful insights. Thank you once again. And over to you, Roger.
Thank you, Bridget. And thank you very much, Christian, for wonderfully moderating the panel. Thank you all the panelists as well. Well,
Thank you.
You're welcome. That brings us to the last day of the KSA Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity Summit. And this has turned out to be a wonderful, power-packed and insightful 2 days. And I'm sure all of us have learned a lot from what we heard today and yesterday on the insights, the trends, solutions, predictions, experiences, and for what lies ahead. With this, dear audience, we have successfully reached the end of an insightful and fruitful completion of KSA Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity Summit. Let me quickly take this opportunity to thank our partners and organizers, Trex Event, Platinum sponsor Oracle, and technology partner Nutanix. And last but not the least, I'd like to thank each and one of you for joining us yesterday and today in great numbers, making the KSA Cloud Summit a massive success. We witnessed top-notch, power-packed keynote presentations and speeches, interactive panel discussions by our subject matter experts from leading ministries, public entities, financial institutions, and edtech industries sharing their valuable time and unmatched knowledge. Lastly, without your continued support, we would never have been able to put such an event, or rather insightful event like this together. So thank you all for joining us. See you in our next Mega KSA Cloud Edition real soon. This is Roger Doss and Bridget signing out. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and have a nice evening. Stay safe and bye from the entire Trex team. Thank you.
One.